Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special video explaining our resolutions process for 2025. I'm going to walk through this presentation and explain how the process works, but we're going to begin with the simple question: what is a resolution? Any voting member of the DPCA may introduce a resolution on just about any topic they wish. Any member of Democrats Abroad may ask a voting member of the DPCA to introduce a resolution on their behalf. Resolutions can be just about anything, right? And what they ask us to do as a body is to take some sort of concrete action or stance on a process or an issue. A process that might be an internal governance question, an issue that may be important to members. Really, just about anything can be a resolution. All right. So now that we know that it is, let's take a minute to check out the timeline for the procedure this year. We're currently in the third week of April. So the period is open during which members may submit resolutions. And that period remains open until May 7th. That's the submissions deadline for May 7th. And then after May 7th and up until May 22nd, there is a period of review during which not only the committee, but also all other voting members of the DPCA may submit suggestions, suggested revisions, discuss directly with authors, and otherwise wordsmith a resolution in view of a final product. The final product must be complete by May 22nd. And later on in this video, I'm going to tell you about some of the things that we're going to do in order to facilitate that conversation as widely as possible. As you know, the AGM will be held beginning June 6th. And while we do not yet have an exact agenda for the AGM, we do know that we will have a finite number of hours in which we can discuss resolutions. So hopefully we'll be able to work with everyone well in advance to prepare resolutions that will be amenable to the body so that we can discuss a maximum number of them. Okay, so now let's take a look at some guidelines. What kind of resolution are you proposing? There are many different kinds. One of them is commemorative or laudatory, and they usually celebrate the life and work of a recently departed member or praise the accomplishment of a prominent figure. Now, we know already, sadly, that we're going to have 3 commemorative resolutions. Hopefully we won't have any more, but we know for sure that we're going to have 3. Usually we are able to pass these kinds of resolutions by unanimous consent. Secondly, is the resolution you're proposing mission critical? Mission critical resolutions will receive priority. And remember, our mission right now is twofold. On the one hand, we have voter engagement, which has 2 sides to that coin. There's both getting out the vote, and there's resistance activities. And on the other hand, a second key part of our mission is advocacy work, advocacy on key issues. Number 1 among them is voter protection. As I record this video right now, we are all engaged in trying to prevent the SAVE Act from passing. The Senate has already passed the House. We also work on tax relief for Americans residing abroad and a number of other key issues. So mission critical resolutions are, for us, the most important and will receive the highest priority. Next is your also on the question of mission critical resolutions. We're going to ask you, are you using existing frameworks and resources? Do the elements that you need in order to achieve what you state is the ask in the resolution already exist, or do they have to be created? Are you, for example, proposing a new task force for something? We're also going to ask, is it realistic with concrete outcomes? And of course, is it permissible under the current bylaws? All right, so commemorative and mission critical. Next, the third type of resolution is a good idea, but really not mission critical. So some of the things we're going to ask you if you are preparing this kind of resolution, some of the things that we're going to ask you to take into consideration is, are you diverting resources? I mean, those are human volunteer hours, but also monies and materials that we have or pay for. And those are all directed right now at mission critical activities. So are you asking for a diversion of resources? Is your good idea something realistic and achievable? I mean, look, we would all like to impeach Trump. We wake up every morning disappointed at the obituaries, but is writing a resolution right now calling for the impeachment of Trump something that is realistic and achievable? We all know how the Constitution works. The Republican Party is not suddenly going to change its mind because Democrats abroad passed a resolution calling for the impeachment of Trump. So be realistic and make sure it's achievable. Does it have concrete outcomes with any real effect? Is it permissible under the bylaws? And is it worth the members' time? Right? Remember, we only have a finite number of minutes in which to discuss resolutions, and our voting members have a finite number of patience in discussing these as well. When we have many dozens of them, it can have a negative effect. We've all sat through meetings in which 36 resolutions are proposed and we only get through 5 of them. So if you've got a good idea, ask yourself, is it good enough for the members to consider right now when we're in the mode of operation that we are in, when we're engaged in mission critical activities? Another kind of resolution is platform related. Now, this is not a platform year, right? And something that appears to be important right now may not have the same urgency 2 or 3 years from now. So if your aim is to include something in a future platform, it really, at this point, should be timeless, right? And we would ask that you first check the 2024 platform to see if something like it is already there. Are you revising that item, or are you adding something new? And another question about proposed resolutions has to do with compliance. Is what you're proposing compliant with our charter and mission? If it isn't, then unfortunately, we will not be able to consider this resolution. And, we cannot talk about foreign affairs. We cannot talk about the activities of our host countries. Those are examples of things that we might like to pass a resolution on, but we cannot because they are not compliant with our charter and our mission. And also, is what you're proposing possible on the basis of our current charter, or would it require a change to our charter? If it requires a change to our charter, then it would probably have to go through the bylaws process before it can be a resolution. Now, one thing that you can do in a resolution that would eventually require a bylaws change is ask the body to please address this issue by the next AGM, right? So voila, compliance is another important issue. And finally, these other considerations, I know I've already said some of these things, but they bear repeating. So is it redundant? I mean, we've passed a lot of resolutions in the past. Is what you're proposing something we've already done? Is it something that's already being done? Right? I'll take the example of the SAVE Act again. There's no need to introduce a resolution to oppose the SAVE Act because we are already opposed to the SAVE Act and we're doing everything in our power to prevent its passage in the Senate. Is what you're proposing necessary? And I mean that in the broadest possible way. I mean, there are some things that we are already doing, some things that the executive committee already has the power to enact. A resolution compelling it may not be necessary, right? Is it worthy of members' time? We've been over this before. And, you know, we can have a meeting that's 3 days long and 2 of them can be beautiful, wonderful days. And then the third one, when we deal with resolutions, can just ruin everybody's mood. So is what you're proposing worthy of members' time? Does it resolve a problem? Does it divert resources? Is it part of our DNA? Sorry, I misspelled our there. Is it part of our DNA as an organization? And is it realistic and concrete? Right, so those are all the different kinds of resolutions that could be proposed and some considerations that we ask you to bear in mind if you're going to propose a resolution. All right, so here are some other guidelines about how to write a resolution. All right, first, resolutions consist of 2 principal parts. There's the whereas section, which tells us why you are introducing the resolution, the problem that you're seeking to resolve, the issue that you're trying to address, etc. And then there's the be it resolved section, which tells us the concrete and specific action that you want the DPCA to take. This is where you make the ask, right? So let's talk about each of those in turn. The whereas section should be specific to the resolution. You know, you don't need to write a James Michener novel here. You do not need to begin 400 million years ago when the dinosaurs roamed the earth, right? You should elaborate the rationale for the resolution, and you should demonstrate the necessity for this resolution in the whereas section. The elements, the different moments of the whereas section should be concise, and you should endeavor to connect this to connect the resolution to the mission in the whereas statements. In the second part, the be it resolved part, the actions that you are asking the body to take should be concrete and achievable. The outcomes should be meaningful, right? Again, you know, asking for the impeachment of Trump is something we all fantasize about. But again, is it really meaningful for us in Democrats abroad to pass a resolution calling for it? I mean, maybe it is. It's up to the body to decide that. I'm just using that as an example. So in the be it resolved section, make sure the ask that you're making are concrete actions, achievable outcomes, that they're meaningful. And if there's more than one, you know, if there's a be it further resolved that clause, then all of those different resolved clauses should harmonize. You should be focused on the single subject of your resolution. And again, you've already done this in the whereas section, but it should be clear that what we're resolving to do is indeed connected to our mission. Okay, so how do you get this done? How do you submit a resolution? First, before you submit, you should consult with the resolutions committee. We can help you with a lot of things. We can help you define the purpose of your resolution. We can help you edit the language so that it's clear, concise, coherent, compelling, and cogent. We can help you refine the outcomes so that they are concrete and achievable. And we can help you verify for redundancy, compliance, etc. So if you're thinking about preparing a resolution, give us a shout. You can write to us. The email I'll repeat later on, but it's easy to remember. It's resolutions@democratsabroad.org, right? So before you submit, consult with the resolutions committee. When you are ready to submit, you just send it to us. There's that email address again. Send it to resolutions@democratsabroad.org. And remember that the deadline for receipt is May 7th. Next, what comes after that? How does a resolution actually get passed? Well, after resolutions are submitted and after the deadline has closed, we will, as a committee, do a number of things. We will regularly, from the moment that you submit, be consulting with authors to polish the product. And authors may consult with other voting representatives as well to amend, revise, refine, and otherwise edit their product. Other voting representatives from other countries may review the provisional product and make suggestions to the author, and we'll help facilitate that conversation. And please, we ask that you wait to seek co-sponsors because we're trying to define a process to facilitate this in the easiest way possible. Remember, the deadline for the final product is May 21st at midnight Eastern. Now, these consultations will be facilitated in a number of different ways. First, we're going to hold at least 4 town halls. We're going to have daily office hours, not all day, not 24 hours a day, but multiple hours per day between April 30th and May 21st. And we're going to maintain some sort of discussion group. So town halls, first of all, are already scheduled on May 11th, 13th, 15th, and 17th. And yes, we know that May 11th is Mother's Day, and we also know that not everybody celebrates that. We may add a 5th town hall on May 19th. You can find RSVP links for all of these town halls on our website. The hours for the town halls are friendly to multiple regions so that everybody around the world will have at least 1 or 2 opportunities to participate in these town halls. And we strongly advise that at least 1 voting representative from each country committee's delegation attend at least 1 town hall, because that way at least 1 person is well informed on your voting delegation and can help inform the voting delegation of all of the relevant information. Now, these town halls, these are where all the friendly wordsmithing and amending gets done. So, there's going to be a process for the town hall. Each resolution will have about 10 minutes of discussion. Somebody can say, I don't like that semicolon there. I would prefer a full colon. And the author may accept your suggestion or may reject your suggestion. But this is where a lot of that sort of fine tuning will get done during these town halls. We'll also have office hours. We've already mentioned the dates, but we don't yet know the hours. We will be publishing those on the website as soon as it is set. And the purpose of these town office hours is to work with authors, first of all, on refining their work, but also to receive suggestions. So if you can't attend a town hall, but you read one of the resolutions and you say, hey, I really want to make this point and I want to make sure this point gets registered and shared with the author, you can write to us at the email, but you can also come to our town hall or office hours, and we'll make sure that the author of the resolution knows what you want to add. And during those office hours, we'll also answer questions for you, questions that could be either procedural or substantive in nature. We're also going to maintain some sort of discussion group. Now, we haven't yet decided what kind this is going to be. It could be on our new platform, Mighty, or it could be an old traditional Google group, and a lot of people are kind of favorable toward that. It would be a voluntary opt-in, so you would not be added to an email listserv and then suddenly find yourself bombarded with emails. It'll be a voluntary opt-in, and we again strongly advise that at least one voting representative from each country committee opt in. Right? We also, if it turns out to be a Google group, advise you to select when you opt into it that you get only one email per day, because otherwise you'll be bombarded with emails, and instead with one email per day you'll just get a summary of all of the emails that were sent. It's up to you though. If you want to be bombarded with emails, that's fine. The purpose of this discussion group is to enable discussion and debate of resolutions in a digital space independently of the scheduled town halls and the office hours in order to facilitate a maximum amount of participation. Key deadlines to be reminded of: deadline to receive resolutions is May 7th, deadline for final product is May 21st, and the publication of our committee report will be May 22nd. In that committee report, we will make recommendations. We will say it is recommended that you vote for this. It is not recommended that you vote for that, or whatever. That's why, it's precisely why we want to work with you as much as possible in advance so that we could actually recommend all of the resolutions. We can get them to the point where we can say these are all acceptable. In any case, our report will be out on May 22nd, and then after May 22nd, no further changes to resolutions are permitted. That is the final product on May 22nd. And at that point, you can begin to seek co-sponsors for your resolutions. Now, we're trying to define a process for this. We're thinking possibly some sort of Google form where co-sponsors could simply add their name to it. We're figuring it out, but we will update you on the website. And this is also a period when you can convince others to vote for your resolution. At the AGM, we have, again, a finite amount of time, and we want to get to a maximum number of resolutions according to a calendar determined by the committee. So for example, memorial resolutions will almost certainly go first, right? Mission critical resolutions will almost certainly go first. And we are charged, part of our task as a committee is to decide that voting calendar. We will also pass a set of rules governing the process at the start of the AGM. And just as a reminder, the passage of a resolution requires only 50% plus one of voting representatives in the DPCA. So if you manage to get 50% plus one, congratulations, you've done it. And that's the process. If you have questions, please write to us at resolutions@democratsabroad.org. If you have resolutions, please submit them to us at resolutions@democratsabroad.org. Thank you very much for your time, and we hope that this has been helpful.